I'm Chaona Chen, and I'm a postdoc researcher working at Face Think Tech Lab, University of Glasgow. Today, I will present work from our lab showing that dynamic face movement texture enhances the perceived realism of facial expressions of emotion. First of all, I want to thank all of my co-authors and founders for supporting this work. So face-to-face interaction is one of the most effective ways to engage in daily interpersonal communication because human faces are highly expressive and visually salient. When the face moves, it produces highly visible changes on the skin. For example, showing forehead furrowing when showing this eyebrow razor, and also showing the strong wrinkle around the nose when scrunching the nose. So these changes in the appearance of the skin, such as the luminance differences due to the skin furrowance, are important visual cues to detect the muscle movements. Importantly, such features are highly salient to human visual system, which is particularly sensitive to specific visual properties, such as high contrast and certain spatial frequencies. However, most of the state-of-the-art virtual agents are often not equipped with these dynamic face movements textures. For example, compared to a real human moves showing these wrinkles, a virtual agent usually show this eyebrow razor like this, and then lacking this dynamic texture. And also comparing to actual wrinkling around the nose, that virtual agent usually show this as well as less of the dynamic texture. And this is also very famous, known for the Duchenne smile, where you have wrinkles around the cheeks. But again, without this dynamic texture, these features will be not there on the face. Although recent studies have developed techniques to render such expressive wrinkles on virtual agent, it remains unclear that whether these dynamic texture actually enhance the appearance of realism, and if so, which specific face features drive these perceptions. So here, we want to address this question by examining the impact of dynamic face movement texture on perceptions of the realism of facial expressions displayed on virtual human face. To do so, we first extracted the facial expressions of the 6 classic emotions from a previous paper. For each emotion, we extracted 5 different face movement patterns and displayed each facial expression model on 10 different face identities. Therefore, we obtained a total of 300 facial expressions. For each facial expression, we then generate a pair of schema with or without the dynamic texture. On each experimental trial, the participant viewed a pair of facial expression stimuli and selected the one that they perceive as most realistic. So following the experiment, we computed for each facial expression the proportion of trials that the participant select as most realistic in the pair. Here, each black circles showing the facial expression of one happy facial expression model with dynamic texture, with this red line showing the average, which is medium of the performance. And here, the blue circles showing those stimuli pairs without the dynamic texture. So to establish a significance level, we also used a pair t-test for each emotion separately, and results show that facial expressions with the dynamic texture are perceived more realistic significantly more often than those without dynamic texture for the 5 emotions, that is happy, surprise, fear, disgust, and anger, significantly level, and not reach a significant level for the emotion set. So next, we want to identify the specific face feature that actually drives the perception of these performance in the differences. We visualize the differences in the facial expression with and without dynamic texture by computing the differences between each pair. So to do so, for each pair of the facial expression presented in the experiment, we first align the peaks of their individual face movements, and then convert each image to a grayscale, and then compute the pixel-wise differences in each pair. We did this for facial expression of each face identity separately, and then computed the averages across the identities. And also we weight the performance by the how much they have been chosen as much more realistic. So we computed a summary face map across all the face identity and face models for each emotion separately. For example, in these face maps, we show that the darker areas around the cheeks and then the lighter area around the lips actually associate with the high performance of realism of facial expressions happy. And in contrast, this darker shadow in the below the eyebrows and below the eyes, which means this very strong movement of squeezing eyes and looking down, these areas actually showing that they make the facial expression sad more realistic. And then again, here we see the changes of the forehead showing these furrows makes facial expression of surprise look more realistic, and the strong frowning and also the wide opening eyes making the fear look more realistic. Interestingly, that you can see that the nose wrinkler, where this strong and darker area around the nose, actually making both sad and both disgust and anger look more realistic, but this sad showing the very emotion specific, the utilateral feature, where the shadow actually appear both on both sides for the facial expression of anger. Therefore, now our results show that these luminance changes on the faces actually associated with the perception of realism are produced by the face movement that are specific to each emotion. So to summarize, our results show that facial expression with dynamic face movement texture are perceived more realistic than those without texture for all the 6 emotions except for sad. An analysis of the facial expression signals shows that emotion-specific features that enhance the perception of realism. And our results therefore highlight the importance of equipping this virtual agents with emotion-specific dynamic face movements with the dynamic texture to generate realistic looking of their facial expressions. And that's all. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions or comments, you can ask me now, or you can contact me via the email address. Thank you.